Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. We made it. We made it to the end of the week. And I think it's safe to say that the Seahawks are better now than they were at the end of last week. So, hey, getting better all the time. Gotta love it. So, I've already said all I can say about signing Aldon Smith and his direct impact on the 2021 Seahawks. But now it's time to take a look at his more indirect impact on the 2021 Seahawks and what we might see some other players do because we have him. Because I have no doubt that we signed Aldon Smith to play a good number of snaps. So we're going to tackle the Darrell Taylor question today. And this should be one of the biggest questions on the mind of every Seahawks fan until the season starts. And I understand that this position is not the most important spot on the team or even in the top 10, maybe, but this matters. The Seahawks have done a great job of assembling some really impressive pass rush talent. The question is, how are we going to use it? How are we going to get it all onto the field? How can we make this work? How can we give everybody enough time to show what they can do and enough time to contribute in a positive way to this defense? That's the next challenge for this team. So, Darrell Taylor. There's not a lot of room at the Leo position. There's not a lot of room at Leo defensive end for him anymore. Sorry, that's the way the cookie is crumbled. And if you go back and look at a lot of the articles and YouTube videos that were made after we drafted him last year, a lot of them are going to say this guy is perfect for the Leo position on the Seahawks defense. This guy is the perfect Pete Carroll Leo. Well, here we are a year later, and I can't say that's really going to pan out. There just isn't the playing time. If Taylor gets playing time at Leo, somebody else is losing playing time. So, how can we make this work? Well, we've already discussed moving Darrell Taylor to Sam because we have a need at Sam, and this way Taylor could get on the field some, whereas at Leo, he might not be getting on the field hardly at all. But it's not enough to just say that. We then have to answer the question, can he do it? So let's try to do that in this video. So, first, when I talk about this stuff, I think a lot of Seahawks fans out there are going to have the same reaction. Here we go again. The Seahawks under Pete Carroll have a little bit of a history of moving players off of their natural position and trying to get them on the field at positions they maybe have never played before. J.R. Sweezy was a good example. He was a defensive lineman who we turned into a guard. Stephen Sullivan last year, we played him at defensive end even though he was a tight end. Ethan Posick was a disaster of an example. He was a lifetime center, and we tried to play him at guard, and it didn't work. So now here we are with another second round pick like Ethan Posick in Darrell Taylor, and we're saying, hey, we know you're probably a natural fit for the Leo spot, but we're going to have you play Sam linebacker. And I know there are going to be some people who reject this idea just because of that. They're tired of making these talented, capable guys play out of position and trying to develop these guys not only as professionals, but also develop them as a position that they don't have familiarity with. That being said, let's move past that and try to analyze things from a more balanced perspective. Okay. First thing I want to say about Darrell Taylor at the Sam linebacker spot that's concerning is his weight. At the time of the NFL draft, he weighed in at 267 pounds. That's a good 20 pounds heavier than KJ Wright was last year, I think, when he was our Sam linebacker. That's a decent amount heavier than Bruce Irvin was when he was going to be our Sam last year and when he was our Sam in the past. And this was last year. He has been nursing an injury ever since this weight was taken, so he might be bigger. He might be heavier. He's got some weight to lose in all likelihood. If you told me that he was 280 right now and he was out of shape because he couldn't work out when he was injured, it wouldn't surprise me that much. So right away, we have one red flag here. He might be a little heavy for the spot. So we're not off to the best start. However, I do have some good news. When I was doing research on Darrell Taylor, I found many positives that indicate that he might be able to be an NFL Sam linebacker playing the occasional Leo in a nickel defense. First, if we go to this old Reddit thread talking about Darrell Taylor, you can see them discussing his physical attributes, and one of them that is highlighted is his 40 time. In the spring of last season, Taylor ran a 4.5 second 40 time. So he's got the speed, at least the straight line speed. He's not going to be out there lumbering around, chasing these tight ends and running backs and getting blown off the field. He can keep up with those guys. If he heals 100% like he was when he played in college, then he is, at least in terms of straight line speed, capable of keeping up with these guys. So that's number one. But that's not nearly enough to make a decision here. You can be as fast as you want to be and still not be a good Sam linebacker. So I decided to go take a look at his old scouting report on thedraftnetwork.com from last year. So we have three draft analysts who decided to make a profile of Darrell Taylor. And I looked over what they had to say about him in terms of not what he is beyond his pass rush skills. So let's start with the first analyst here. We have Solak, and he had one quote in here that caught my eye in the positive. He said, "The natural athleticism of Taylor shows up in space drops as well, is a candidate for some cover responsibilities at the next level." And this is the key for Darrell Taylor. As a Sam linebacker, we know he'll be able to rush the passer because he's a pass rusher from college. He was a great pass rusher at Tennessee. Can he cover? So this sentence right here indicates that he did it sometimes at Tennessee, and he did it fairly well. We also have this line right here: plays with good discipline as a run defender when the line of scrimmage, and has sufficient length/strength to one-arm some opponents and keep outside shoulder clean. Now, there's a difference between being a run defender as a defensive end and one as a Sam linebacker, but it's good to have some idea of his ability to play run defense as a linebacker opposed to a defensive end. So this is a good start. It's a good start. So let's go to Marino, the second analyst on this site, and take a look at his list of pros for Darrell Taylor. He has this sentence to say: has been used in a versatile capacity for the Vols, aligning from both a 2 and 3-point stance while even tasked with defending some short zones in coverage. So again, we have another analyst here who points out that despite being a pass rusher first and foremost, he does have some experience dropping into coverage and playing from a 2-point stance. And finally, let's go to Krabs, the third and final analyst here. Scroll down in his analysis of Taylor. Stand-up ability. Has done well to get to landmarks in shallow zones and was tasked with picking up backs out of the backfield, example Florida 2019, with success. He's not fully polished in the peripheral vision to sense and feel out where to buzz and anticipate throwing lanes, like his presence along the line of scrimmage to flash hands and disrupt QB's vision. So, not bad as far as a 4-3 defensive end prospect goes. He seems to be willing to give Darrell Taylor some credit in being able to cover. And that would, again, that's the main question when we're trying to figure out if this guy can be a Sam linebacker. And one final thing I want to take a look at here before we wrap up this video today in trying to determine this. There was an article, and this is probably the best resource we have right now in terms of figuring out whether or not Darrell Taylor can do this, by Seahawks Maven. It's posted on sportsillustrated.com, si.com. And this was written about 3 weeks ago, and it was talking about this very issue. There aren't enough snaps for Darrell Taylor at Leo, so how is he going to get on the field? And they propose he could play as Sam linebacker. Now, keep in mind that this article was written 3 weeks ago. So this doesn't even factor in signing Aldon Smith. So it's even more pressing now than it was when he wrote this. So you can scroll through the first few paragraphs of this article. They kind of just go over the facts. They kind of just go over what happened over the 2020 season for Darrell Taylor. And as you get down to the midpoint of this article, you can start reading about what intrigues me. Depending on the outcome of KJ Wright's free agency, Taylor could see snaps at strong side linebacker this fall. Seahawks Mavens Matty F. Brown has also theorized this possibility. So they talk a little bit about his ability as an edge rusher, which is all well and good, but then we get to some of the really interesting stuff down here. What seemed to fly under the radar after the Seahawks selected him, due to their dire need for pure pass rushing talent at the time, was how his athletic ability could translate to the linebacker position, particularly at Sam. Ideally, he'd be more of a rush first Sam in Seattle, obviously, but he can handle himself in coverage quite well. And this is the stuff I want to hear. When lined up in a 2-point stance, Taylor showed a knack for jamming tight ends at the line and keeping pace in man-to-man situations. If he's able to stay in line with his assignment, his 33-inch arm should help him win most ball fights. Dropping back into coverage off the line, he proved competent in open space, working well in one-on-one tackling opportunities with good reaction time and closing speed to the ball against all types of pass catchers. So, obviously, he's probably not going to be as good as KJ Wright was in coverage. That's just the difference between a 10-year veteran and somebody who hasn't played in the NFL before. But it seems like the talent is there, and he showed the ability to do it a decent amount at Tennessee. Now, the article does go on to list some of the downsides to bringing Darrell Taylor in as a Sam linebacker. They do admit that they don't know how good of a run defender he's going to be. You can scroll down a little bit more, and this article will address that. On tape, one of Taylor's biggest struggles in college was shedding blocks while moving laterally with the run. Bigger linemen dominated him at the point of attack, driving him off of his spot and out of the play. Even with potential space at the second level, it'll be interesting to see how Taylor handles bigger NFL bodies turning upfield and chugging at him downhill. I have a couple other questions/concerns about Taylor in this role. Can he work through a wall of blockers on screens well enough to get to the ball carrier or at least disrupt the play? We all know how good KJ Wright was at stuff like that. And can he be a factor in helping seal off the edge on outside runs and quick breaking plays like jet sweeps and fly sweeps? We all know that teams like the Rams really like to run those plays, especially against us. I remember a couple years ago we showed we weren't able to defend against them, so the Rams just started spamming it against us. We don't want to see that again. The second question there is certainly more important than the first, not only from a Sam perspective, but overall. I could go on and read out the rest of the article, but I would recommend you guys go and just read the whole thing yourself if you're more interested in this topic. The main takeaway that I want to have from this article is that athletically and in terms of what he showed on the field at Tennessee, Darrell Taylor seems like he can do this. This is not just us guessing based off his 40 time. This is not just us guessing because he looks the part. He actually did do a little bit of this in college. And look, he looks like a promising NFL pass rusher. It's a little unfortunate that he'll be able to utilize those talents a little less as a Sam. But the way I see it, with the way the roster is right now, with the way our salary cap is, with the way things have just happened, I feel like this is the best way for Darrell Taylor to get on the field in his rookie year, technically second year, but you guys all know what's going on there. So that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. I just wanted to take a look at some of the pros and cons in the argument for Taylor being the Sam. I feel like the pros are bigger than the cons. Seems like this guy's pretty good in coverage for what he is. Seems like this guy can be an effective pass rusher as a Sam, which is a valuable skill because Sams rush the passer a lot. Seems like he can keep up with tight ends and running backs at least a little bit. He is going to have to learn on the fly some skills. He's not going to be a KJ Wright screen whisperer right out of the gate. But I think this is one way we can get the most talent on the field as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Peace out, Go Hawks. Hope you guys learned something. Hope you guys appreciated the analysis. Look, you can go watch Darrell Taylor's tape on YouTube if you want to, but all you're going to find are his quarterback sacks because that's the stuff that gets people out of their seats. But I think that if you were to analyze his tape and watch every play, you might be a little more impressed than you thought with his ability to cover. All right, see you guys later. Peace out. Go Hawks. What do you think?